is full and the tide is high, I call to you, I call to you. When the moon is full and the tide is high, I call to you, my lady. Good MoonDay morning, water witches, watery ones, water women, watermen, merfolk, water priestesses, and everyone who is passionate and in love with the water. I am drinking my coffee this morning, and I woke up with many things on my mind that I wanted to talk about, specifically in regards to water priestessing. And I thought that it would be fun to discuss water priestessing on this wonderful full moon Monday morning, perfect for a MoonDay morning check-in, while I am drinking my coffee. This is my 1 cup a day that I'm allowed to have, that I allow myself to have. I am also wearing my priestess hood this morning. Honestly, to cover up some bad hair, because I braided my hair last night and I hadn't brushed it this morning, and I wanted to get on here sooner rather than later. And also because I really wanted to wear it. I don't think I've worn it on camera before. It is by Opal Moon Designs. It was purchased because it is the same color as Sulis's water in bag. So today I wanted to talk to you about water priestesses. So you think you're a water priestess, or you think you want to be a water priestess, and this could count for other things as well, but I specifically want to talk about the word priestess for a few minutes. And then we're going to get into other types of watery words. Actually, before I get into priestess, maybe we'll start there. If you're called to work with the water, you don't have to call yourself priestess. You can call yourself many different things. You can be a water alchemist, you can be a water spiritual scientist, you can be a water spiritualist, a water healer. The word priestess is something that's very specific to cultures and very specific to a process in which women go through in order to gain wisdom and knowledge in a respectable manner that is then utilized and brought back to the people. So you can really be connected to water without having gone through priestess training and still have an impact on your world, your environment, the people that you work with. But this word priestess, I always find this interesting because within paganism and metaphysics, people can just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm a priestess. And so that's what I'm going to brand everything as now, priestess. Priestess is not a brand. It's not a name for a brand. It is a word that describes the work that somebody does. So let's define what the word priestess is very specifically. And I have my definitions right here. Sorry that I have to look down. Good time for me to take a drink of my coffee, which is getting close to being done. Okay, the word priestess, a female priest of a non-Christian religion. So the key here in the dictionary definition is religion. Can you be a priestess if you're an atheist? Probably not. It is very specifically related to religion. If you are doing the work of a priestess, but our okay, I lost my train of thought there. I think okay. So if you are an atheist, can you be a priestess? Well, that's really hard. If you don't believe in gods or goddesses, you don't work with any other higher beings or even the actual water spirits, not the spirit of water, but I'm talking about direct contact and service to deities, merfolk, nymphs, etc., then are you really doing the work of the priestess? I don't think that fits. If you don't believe in higher spirits or you don't serve spirits, then, and the water itself is not a spirit, it is a collection of. So if you're just like, I serve the ocean, there's many people that serve the ocean, but they're not priestesses. Priestess is very specifically, as I had said before, a female priest of a non-Christian religion. So this goes back to the culture that I was talking about for a little bit, and that culture is that there's cultures, actually. There's many cultures from around the world, and women step into these places of spiritual training within their cultural context. So that brings me up to something else that I wanted to talk about the work of a priestess. Not only is it about serving the water spirit, but it is someone who administers. I'm reading off the definitions here so that they are perfect and accurate. They are someone who administers religious rites. So does that mean that if you lecture about water around the world that you're a water priestess? No, it doesn't, unless you are facilitating rites within a spiritual context. Then you're not doing the work of the priestess. You're doing the work of the scientist or the alchemist or the witch or the mage and magician. Wizard. There's many words. Paganism and metaphysics, and this is something that's bothered me for a very long time. Within paganism and metaphysics, we're the only grouping of paths that says, hey, you can be whatever you want to be, just wake up tomorrow and be it. If I was a male Christian, and I woke up this morning and was like, I've been called to the cloth. I've been called to the priesthood. They don't say, okay, I'm a priest, and go to church and start preaching. They go to seminary, and they go and they train in seminary. And this is what's really important. The word priestess, I feel, is becoming trendy, and anybody that just decides that they want to be a priestess can be a priestess without undergoing any type of formal training. And they use it as branding. They use it to get followers. And this is cultural appropriation, first off, because it's appropriating the pagan, Wiccan, and other ancient Reconstruction practices and religions that have worked really hard to revive the old priestess practices. Now, you're probably thinking, but Emin, you have priestess training. This is just a ploy to get people to take priestess training. So here, let me tell you two things. First off, priestess training is free. I don't need anybody to take it. The information is there specifically for people to train, because we do have so many people that want to be water priestesses but don't have the tools in their tool belt. Okay, so that's the first thing, is water priestess training is free. So this is not a ploy to make any money. And two, there are many other amazing schools that train priestesses and that have a really long lineage of training amazing priestesses. Let's talk about a few of those. Glastonbury Goddess Temple, been around forever and ever, and trains and pumps out decent priestesses in not in an hour. They go through a program, at least a year and a day. Okay? So that's one. The Avalon Mystery School, the Sisterhood of Avalon, The Sisterhood of Avalon doesn't pump out priestesses, but I've done their program work enough to know that it's a good foundation to at least start your priestess work, because they do a lot of shadow work and self-awareness and busting through blocks and so forth. The Temple of Witchcraft, run by Christopher Penczak. The Corellian Church. Any traditional Wicca or witchcraft, American traditional witchcraft, British traditional witchcraft, British traditional Wicca, American traditional Wicca, or anything in between or falling in those categories, they have years and years and years of training and pumping out priests and priestesses that are solid in their magical work. And they're solid in their magical work, and they've worked really hard, and they've trained under other people, peer review. Ooh, that's a good thing to talk about. Let's talk about peer review and how that works with this. So peer review is something that we use in the academic community to talk about a paper or a subject that has been uncovered or is being talked about from a specific perspective. And what peer review does is that information is then sent out to peers, people that are accredited and respected within the community. And they look at their work and they say, hey, everybody, this is exactly what it says it is. And I know because I checked it out. And then they have many people do this. And then that becomes an accredited paper or piece of work based on the person's research and knowledge, but also based on the expertise of other people in their field. So it's not just one person going around saying, look at this new stuff that I found. It's all accurate. They go an extra step and they get peer reviewed. And this is why training is really good. If you want to be a legitimate priestess, or you want to be a legitimate priest or witch or whatever on your path, then peer review is helpful, not only for helping others see that you've done the work and that you have trained, but also it also shows that your work is good and knowledgeable and that other people respect it. But you might be thinking, okay, but I don't have to have peer review to do my work. Absolutely, you don't. However, you're responsible for other people's spirituality. You're responsible for their soul and their spirit and the connection that they have to spirits. And spirits are not always friendly or good. And this is one of the problems that I have with the metaphysics, is they always think, oh, light and vibrations and high and everything is great and people can just go talk to whatever they want and spirits whatever they want. Well, guess what? Hundreds of thousands of years of folklore and magic and modern magical practitioners who back it up in their own work, and these modern magical practitioners have been peer reviewed, back it up in their own magical work. It's irresponsible to claim that you are a priestess when you haven't trained, and that you're leading people astray by your own ego. And if you are not prepared and equipped to deal with the spiritual realm and the darker side of water, then you're going to lead people into situations that is going to harm them only because you are ignorant. This is why training is so important. Go get a year in a day program where you can train. Go to your local metaphysical or witch shop and say, hey, who's the teacher in town that teaches classes? And start taking classes. Might be like, I don't have money to do this. That's why Water Priestess training is free. But it's not really about the money, right? Like, if you're really committed to this path, then you will step up and you will find a program that can train you properly so that you can lead others properly. it's like doing a tour, like a hiking tour into a forest that you've never been into, that you have never researched, that you have never looked at in any way, shape, or form. And you're like, but I hike forests all the time, so I'm just going to take this group of people through the forest. Well, if you've never been there, how can you guarantee that there aren't poisonous snakes, poisonous bugs, or animals that are going to snag your hikers? If you don't know what's in the forest, you shouldn't be in the forest. But you might say, but Alan, I've had spirit initiation. Spirit initiation is complicated because the only person that gets to say that you've had spirit initiation is you. So anybody can technically say it. Now, there are definitely signs that someone has had a spirit initiation or a spirit awakening. And I'm not going to go into that. That's a whole nother video. And that's great. So let's just say that you know that you've had spirit initiation or spirit awakening through this process, and you really feel led to be a water priestess. Great. This is amazing. Like, thank you so much for doing this work. Be responsible. Spirit initiation is not enough to take you to a place of teacher, to take you to a place of leader in the spiritual realms. Okay? So just be careful. Let's also talk about cultural appropriation. I mentioned this a little bit earlier with my coffee's almost gone. Talking about atheists and people that maybe don't follow spirits appropriating this practice. So it is cultural appropriation to say that you do not. It's cultural appropriation of priestess practices to say that you don't believe in deities, but that you're also a priestess. Or that you don't lead people into the spiritual realms, but that you're also a priestess. First off, it's cultural appropriation, okay? It's taking what you want from a culture that has worked very hard, and in this case, the priestess culture, the women's priestess culture, is something that we as women have had to fight for over the past many, many years to come to a place of being recognized as legitimate. And then to just take that title from us and say, oh, I'm a priestess now, just because I woke up this morning and thought that it would be great, is bastardizing all of the hard work that many of us have done over the years to get to a place of being legitimate, of being respected by the world and other religions and other churches. But let's take this a step further. I am a Celtic water priestess, and the reason for that is several reasons. One, I'm Celtic descent. I'm a Celt. 100%. There is like no American in me. I am, or any other culture in me. I am Irish, Scot, and a tiny bit of Norse Germanic. And so that's why I practice the Celtic path. Even if Yemaya called to me to be her priestess, even though I have trained in 2 different mystery schools, and I have started my own training programs, even if Yemaya called to me, I would not say I am her priestess. And the reason for that is because I have not trained in the cultural practices of her people. And this is why you don't see me doing a lot of rituals to Oshun or Yemaya or anything like that. Now, it's okay if you do, and I absolutely do them in private and practice because these are spirits that I can still talk to. But this is why I don't lead meditations to Yemaya, because people of these practices, the people that have trained and that are priestesses and have a lineage, an ancestral lineage to these deities, have a very specific way of training in order to become their priestess. And who am I to step on their process and their hard work and practice and religion just because I wanted to be a priestess of Yemaya? So, do I talk to Yamaya? Absolutely. Do I work with her? Yes. Have I done devotional dance pieces to her? No. But I am working with 2 other gals on an Oshun one, but it is not going to be advertised as such. It is a devotional piece and offering to her. And we're not doing a big thing where we charge money, bringing people in and being like, I am, priestess of Oshun, let me pour her blessings out upon you. That is not my place. And it's not yours either unless you have been invited into these closed practices. Now, that's the other thing that's, let's talk about. The priestesshood is about half closed. What does that mean? Closed religions or practices mean that they're only open to certain people, certain cultures, certain people from certain cultures, or certain people out of their culture that have had specific cultural experiences, and I'm not telling you what they are, and they don't either. And they go to these other priestesses who are priestesses of these paths and say, okay, these are the things that have happened. Then it is their priestess or priest's job to decide whether or not to bring this outsider into this closed practice. If a practice is cultural and you don't belong to that culture, it's probably closed. Now, the great thing is about things like Celtic spirituality and Norse spirituality, we have worked really hard to make sure that they are not closed. However, I will be so hard on this that if a religion is closed or if a practice is closed, you don't get to just go out and say, this is who and what I am. That is basically saying, going back to peer review, that you've had a paper peer reviewed when they've refused to peer review it. So anyways, this is a little bit longer than the 10 minutes that I thought this video was going to be. But so let's move on to the positive side of this. First off, like I said many times before, there are many other words other than priestess that you can use to describe your practice. If you are not trained as a priestess, if you are not a believer in spirits and deities, if you do not serve or work with them in any way, and you just don't believe in the spiritual realms and you've never visited them, if you don't lead religious or spiritual groups or magical practices, then you're probably not a priestess. If you're doing these things, then I'm not going to say you probably are on your, you probably are a priestess. You're probably on your way to becoming a priestess. Priestess is not a word like witch that I'm willing to just let people be like, oh, I'm a priestess, or I'm a witch, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Within witchcraft, we have a long history of there being solitary witches. And this is a historical basis for solitary witches, which is why initiation is not important, because we have tons of folklore and historical texts that say you don't have to be in a coven to be a witch. But do you have to be in a coven to be a priestess? No, you don't, but that's definitely one path to get there. I think that I'm just going to end this video because I feel like I might be rambling and saying a few things over and over and over again. But I will say this. If you think you're a priestess, think you want to be a priestess, are doing the work of a priestess, you have an obligation to the water spirits, to the people, to the spirits that you serve, and to other priestesses who have walked and forged this path for you, to be the best version of a priestess that you can be. And that means getting training from outside. If you think that you have everything that you need to be a priestess, you are far behind. I trained for many years in 2 different schools. I was very nervous. I took this word, priestess, as such It was so heavy for me. I understood the weight of it. I understood that people's souls were in my hands, that people's spirituality was looking to me for answers. And I wanted to make sure that I had the best training possible, that I could carry these people, or at least point them in a direction that was positive for them. And I'll say that without having outside guidance, without having wisdom from my elders, and going through 2 different programs where I was forced to work and to learn the spiritual and magical and priestess arts, that I am very confident as a priestess. And I want everybody out there to also be that confident in their priestess work. If you're just talking about science, you're not doing the work of the priestess. Go get training. Learn how to become a priestess. There's free classes, there's free training, there's books. And while I don't think that reading a book is going to make you a priestess, it's going to help you to start expanding your knowledge and your spiritual realm and basis for these people that may be coming to you for guidance. Our water and our spiritual waters are in such peril right now. We really don't have time for half-assing our process and our programs. Everybody here, every priestess across the world, blanket statement, has an obligation to continue their education regularly. That means after 15 years of being a priestess, you still better be taking classes. I go on retreats with my best friend where I go and I take classes. I go within my coven, my students that I have taught and brought up over years into the witch and priestess path, I make them teach classes. And guess what? My students have so much knowledge because they've trained with not only me, but other people. Because when they come to me for training, I'm like, okay, let's dive into this training. I don't have all the answers. You need to get training from somewhere else too, or subsidize some of the things that I don't teach. And so I know that my students have teachings from not only me, but other people that I respect. And those students then come back and they teach me a lot of things. So continuing education is really important. And I know I said I'd end this video 7 minutes ago or something, but let me just go ahead and officially end with this. You have an obligation to the water spirits, the people that you serve, and this planet to be the very best priestess that you can be. Which means if you have if you've self-titled yourself as priestess without any training, out any peer review, out any programs, and only based on books and branding and ego, then you're going to get a very, very, very unpleasant lesson from the water spirits. And that may be when you send a student off to do something and it goes very bad and it harms them. It may be your own self. You may not understand the depths of the water that you're swimming in. You may not understand that the water spirits have both positive and negative aspect about them. The water can both give life and heal, but will also drown and destroy. And so please remember that when you're doing your work, that even if you stay in the most high vibration possible, the water spirits do not care, and they deserve the respect that they deserve, which is us, water priestesses, making sure that we are the very best priestesses that we can be by subsidizing our education, by always learning, by doing the work, by doing shadow work, and not doing things like going around and just branding ourselves as priestesses without any actual training or only spirit initiation. Spirit initiation is awful and terrible and no one should go through it. But even if you've had spiritual initiation, it is not enough to lead other people through their own path. It may be helpful for others that have had spirit initiations, but that, anyways, please, please, please find a teacher, find a program. At the very least, take local classes at your local metaphysical or witch shop, take online classes from other priestesses, or grab a book and learn. And before you step out as a priestess and as someone who is able to give spiritual knowledge to others, please, please, please go through the proper channels and make sure that you are doing the best, and that this is not about your ego and not about your branding and what sounds cool this week. Because the word priestess is not just a cool word that you can use for branding. It is a serious word with serious consequences for not only yourself, but this planet and for other people's spirit and spiritual paths. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling this morning on this lovely full Monday morning, this full moon day morning. I hope that your full moon rites go amazing tonight. Please keep the water and water spirits in all of your prayers and magic. And if you're looking for more information, you can find me at waterwitchcraft.com, and you can find free priestess training soon to launch over at waterpriestess.com. And when you are out searching, if you decide that my teachings and paths are not for you, that is okay, that is great. I just highly encourage you to please, please, please find teachings that do fit you and the style of learning and the style of practice that you would like to use, and then become trained and utilize that in a responsible manner in your own work. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.